So one thing you have to do in your project window, which you can't do in the score editor, is if you wanna work on a score, you have to choose the order of your instruments here in the project window. So I have now 3 instruments, and if I put my violin first and the cello in the middle and the piano in the bottom, it will be shown like this here in the score editor as well. So you should do this first before you work on your project. Another thing that's very helpful is if you click on the names of your instruments, you can choose 2 different ways. For example, my acoustic piano on top of my score is called acoustic piano. But for the rest of my score, it's just called piano. So I opened the right zone, I clicked on a name, and I say choose the short form. I put in the name here and hit enter, and then only the first time the full name is shown, and afterwards it will use the short form, which is very convenient because the long names always get in the way of the music you actually have to read. One of the most important things in the score editor is this blue line over here. It shows your active stuff. So for example, if I'm working on the violin right now, this is the active stuff. If I want to work on the cello, so if you click anywhere, this blue line indicates your active stuff. And if you double click it, the main window where you can apply changes will be shown. For example, what you can do is, if you want to show that in your score that violin and the cello, these are a string section, and you want to put like brackets over here, it's really simple. You double click it, you go to layout, and you see these 2 brackets here. One is like curvy and one is straight. Here you can see all your instruments, and you just go to the straight one and drag over as long as you want, and you say apply, then you have the straight one. If you do the same with the curvy one and you say apply, and you have a curvy bracket that shows that these 2 are maybe a string or a brass section or a choir. Another thing you can do here is if you have a MIDI part where you programmed a drum set, and you go to your inspector and say load a drum map. At first this will make sure that if you double click it, your drum editor is chosen as your main editor, which by the way you can also choose from your lower zone. You have your editor here and a tiny drop-down menu where you can choose the key, the drum, or the note editor. If you choose a drum mat and you programmed a drum set and you open your score editor, it will immediately show the notes. This one is weird. The notes in the form that you put in your drum map. So if you go to MIDI and choose drum map, then you will see here in the end the symbols that are applied to your kick drum, your snare drum, your hand clap, and so on and so on. These will also be shown here in the score editor, and if not, you activate the system, you go to the blue line, double click it, you choose Note System Options, and you activate Use the Drum Notation. So another thing you can achieve by using the blue line is you can adjust how far your staves will be from each other. For example, let's say we have the cello and the violin, and of course it doesn't make sense, but let's say one is playing really high and the other really low, and it's so close together that you can see it very clear, or you need space for a chord symbol, or your pedal information and your chord symbols are in the way, or you don't have enough space to put in lyrics anymore. So that would mean you need more space, and you can adjust the space by using the blue line. You click it and drag it. What happens is, you see, I have now my drums, my piano, and the two strings. And if I click on the second highest and drag it, all the others will follow, but they will stay the same. So I just put space between the highest and the second staff. If I drag this one down and create space here, that means this is only working for that line. It is not applied down here or on the other pages. But if I drag and hold Alt or Option, all the changes are applied to the other staffs as well, also on the following pages. So if you grab one and drag it, all the others will move as well, except if you just want to apply the change to one staff and you don't want the others to move as well, you hold down the Command key. You see, if you now grab the blue line and drag, just this staff moves and all the others stay where they are. This is really helpful if you want to get a better overview in your layout. So one thing you can do to get a better overview over your project as well is to use your chord track. You can use the layout functions and say, show me the chord track, and you see it immediately puts in the chords. Just put in some random chords here, and these will now be shown here in my score editor as well, so I know what my harmonies are. If you want to apply changes to a chord or a note, you just grab it and put it somewhere else, and you see immediately the symbols for my grid appear. If I use, let's say, quarter notes, then I only have 4 possibilities to move my chord. That would be helpful if I'm working on changes. A lot of the times the changes will fall on quarter notes or half notes, or maybe the beginning of a bar, and it's much easier to put the chord where it actually belongs. You should keep that in mind, because if you want to apply changes to your notes, this might limit you in the things you want to do. So right now I'm just grabbing the note, and you can see I can immediately change the pitch of the note. But if I want to put it to another place in the bar, it's not possible to put it on the beat 4 because my grid is set to half notes. So I have to set it back to quarter notes, or even if I would have put it somewhere else, 8th notes or 16th. So now I have my score, and I have music that is played up to here, and then the piano has just rests until to the last bar. That happens a lot in music, that different parts have a lot of rests. So what I want to do is I want to put all these rests together to one long rest that shows me in one bar rests for all these bars that are now shown as single rests. So you double click the blue line, you go to layout, and you choose these option here where you put in the maximum amount of rest that can be shown if there is a full bar rest. So now I have at max 1 full bar rest. If there are more than 1 bars, then Cubase will automatically put these together like so. You see? It put all these 7 single rest bars into one. So now it has like a weird look, because these was the way the rest would be shown in classical music. I guess it is a full bar rest, and here is a double bar rest, and here is a double and a double bar rest, so 4 rests, and these together are the 7 bars. I open the right zone, I click on it, and then I can choose church style. This is this view. I uncheck it and I get the like pretty normal modern style. I can also say I want to have the numbers above or under my staff, and done. You see, that was really simple. And now I have a good overview and it's much easier to read than before. The same thing I just showed you with my chord symbols from the chord track can be applied to your markers. I just randomly put in a few markers. You create a marker track, you hold down your Alt or Option key, and you put in the markers where you want it to. So now if I open my score editor and I go to score and I choose in the layout functions the last options, then you see all the markers that I put in are shown as rehearsal letters. What is really cool about these rehearsal letters is they're kind of intelligent, if you want to say so. They will always keep a logical form. So if I use my C and put it before B, you see they will immediately change. So A will always be first and B will always be second. If I put it third, these two change. So B will be here and C comes next. So one more thing you can do, which is really practical, especially for rhythmic instruments, is if you open a score editor and you right click, you can choose the rhythmic notation, which is kind of a simplified notation and just shows rhythmic values and not notes with pitch. If that is not simple enough, you can do another thing. You double click your options and you say show a system with just one single line. I think this is really cool for percussion instruments, or probably if you want to say I'm writing down a strumming pattern or snare drum rehearsal patterns.